Alright guys, we're back here with another Strength is a Skill series video. We're going to talk about the deadlift setup today. Got a few points here on the board that we want to think about when we're getting set up for a good, strong deadlift. So the first thing, we always talk from the ground up, so we're going to start with our feet. We want them to be in that good jumping stance, just like we were for the press. So about a hip width distance is going to work for most people. Where you might have to deviate from this is if you're a taller athlete with some longer legs, you may need to go slightly outside of that hip width distance. Okay. The next thing, and this is super important for the deadlift, you want your weight in the heels of your feet. Right. This is going to activate the posterior chain, your hamstrings, your glutes, which are the muscles that we're trying to really work on the deadlift. We want to corkscrew those feet into the ground, leave a footprint. Your heels, the weight should be in your heels, but your toes should also be flat on the ground. You shouldn't be deadlifting with the toes up in the air. Alright, the next one, and this may in fact be the most important thing, no matter what you're doing, whenever you're pulling a bar off the ground, we want you to have a flat back. Okay, flat means straight, doesn't necessarily mean up and down. It means flat, good, neutral spine position. One thing that's going to help with that is pulling the shoulders away from the ears. Alright, that's going to actually help you engage the lats and stay in a really good position as you drive that bar off the ground. Okay. Then we've got vertical shins, which leads to knees behind the bar. Okay, vertical shins, basically if you get your weight in your heels and you activate that posterior chain, it's going to keep your shins straight up and down as much as possible. It's going to keep those knees behind the bar so that when you go for that heavy deadlift, nothing's in the way, there's nothing obstructing you from getting that 500 pounds off the ground. And then last part, your hands, I like to say a thumb's length off the thigh. You just want to make sure that the hands are pretty close to being underneath the shoulders. We don't want to go super wide to where we're doing the snatch grip deadlift. That's not our strongest deadlift. We want to be pretty close to under the shoulders, and we've got to keep that bar close to our body. All right, right up against the shins, dragging it up all the way to complete extension. Alright, Rob's going to show us what this looks like. Alright guys, so we've got Rob here about to show us what good deadlift setup looks like. So first thing, if you notice, he's got his feet in a hip width stance. Alright, similar to what we would be doing for any pressing movement, a little closer than our feet would be on a squat. Alright, the next thing we're going to show is his hands. He wants to measure about a thumb's length off the side of the thighs, and then he's going to go down and find that position on the bar. Good setup. We'll show him from the profile view here in a second. Alright guys, we're going to show you a couple of faults that we see involving foot position, hand position, and actually the knees in a deadlift. So Rob is going to go down, he's got a good hip width distance, his hands are in the right spot, and then if you notice, his knees are caving in. That is not a strong position to be in. We actually want to actively press the knees out, just like we would on a squat. So that was a good fix there. And then another common problem that we'll see is the feet go too wide, and then the hands go outside the feet, and we're basically in pretty much a squat stance with our feet, which is not what we're trying to do on a deadlift. Alright, so remember, heels under the hips, hands just outside the legs, drive those knees out to create some torque so we can be nice and strong as we drive that bar off the ground. Alright guys, we're going to talk a little bit about hand positioning on that bar. So when we're deadlifting, sometimes our grip is our limiting factor, and what we want to do is at the lighter weights, we want to keep a overhand grip. Okay, just a normal overhand grip. This is going to help transfer over to our cleans a little bit more, and what we want to do is we want to save that switch grip. So Rob's going to show us a switch grip here. That's where he turns one hand over. This is actually a stronger grip, but we want to save that for our heavy sets. Alright, so you're looking at 85+% of your 1 rep max, maybe heavy sets of 3, 2, or 1. Save that grip for those heavy sets. Okay, so try to keep those hands forward as long as you can. When the weight gets heavy, then you can switch it over. Alright guys, we've got a profile view here of Rob getting into a good deadlift position. So the first thing that he's going to do is he's going to get the weight in the heels of his feet. He's going to do that by sitting back with his hips first and then pulling himself down to the bar. Nice. And if you notice, what this does is it keeps his shins fairly vertical and it keeps his knees behind the bar. Rob, could you show us that one more time? So he's going to stand up here, and I really want you to watch his hips. Watch how he hinges at his hips and not his knees. Keeping those shins vertical. Good. That way when he goes for this 500-pound deadlift, he can keep that bar close to his body. Alright guys, so we're back here with Rob. He's going to show us another profile view of his deadlift setup, and what we're going to focus on here is his flat back, good neutral spine position. So Rob, go ahead and show us that position here. And he's actually doing a PVC pipe test. Alright, so he's holding a PVC on his back so that we can see that he's got 3 points of contact with that PVC pipe. The hips, the shoulders, and the back of the head. Alright, that is a good neutral spine position. That's where we want to keep our back in a setup position and all the way through that lift. Alright, you also notice he's pulling his shoulder blades away from his ears, and what that does is it will engage his lats, and your lats are some of the strongest pulling muscles you have in your body. So it's super important that we engage those lats and we can get that heavy weight off the ground. Alright guys, we're back here. Rob's going to show us a few of the common faults that we see in the deadlift setup. Alright, so the first one here, and this is probably the worst one that we want to try to avoid, this would be the rounded back position. Alright, notice how his spine, there's an extreme curvature in his spine, and we want to avoid that at all costs. So, the fix for this, pulling the shoulders back, right, engaging those lats, flattening everything out. That way we keep that back in a good straight position. Okay, so that was a good fix there. Alright, the next one that we see would be pulling the hips a little bit too low in the setup position, starting in more of a clean, or even, you know, kind of almost the bottom of an air squat, right? That's not a bad clean setup position at all, but we're not cleaning the bar. We are trying to pull some heavy weight off the ground, and this hips higher than knee position, if you notice, his hips are higher than his knees. Alright, that puts him in a mechanically advantageous position to get a lot of weight off the ground. Alright, so that's the fix there. Remember, the hips are always a little bit higher than they would be in a clean. And the last one that we'll see, sometimes we'll see people shrug those traps up to the ears, putting our neck in a bad position. Alright, the fix for that is the same as that first one. Pull those shoulders back, pull the ears away from the shoulders, and that'll keep you in a good position. Alright, good fix, Rob.